You're listening to the Global Inclusion in Practice podcast, sharing the stories of DEI changemakers around the world. Vivian Acquah and Marjolein Vlug bring you behind-the-scenes stories and kitchen table conversations about the personal perspectives of DEI professionals, representatives, advocates, and allies, talking about what matters in this work and what sustains us in creating lasting change. There are many of us working on creating a more inclusive world. Let's share our stories. We're in this together.
Hi, Klarrisa. Welcome to the Global Inclusion in Practice podcast. And we are so excited for having you as our guest. And can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, first of all. So I'm Klarrisa Frank. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as a multiracial first-generation Chinese American that's now an immigrant in the Netherlands. I'm originally from the west coast of the U.S., and now I've been in Amsterdam for about 6 years. So as you can see, I grew up in now I live in places that are really full of diverse cultures and traditions. So I've often felt stuck in the middle. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, or maybe as the only bridge connecting one culture to another, and spent a lot of my professional life kind of feeling unsure of how to really make an impact. But for now, for work, I consider myself a coach, facilitator, creative, and consultant. And in my coaching, because of my background, I enjoy helping other ambitious, diverse professionals build their visibility and advance their careers. And yeah, again, I'm sure we'll dive into this a little bit more, but I'm currently exploring what's next in my own career journey. And I'm looking to add projects or roles within the DEI space that allow me to either one, create experiences, whether that's coaching, workshops, or out of the box things, or offer consulting on internal processes and or content strategy to make those things more inclusive. So that's me.
So you mentioned something about building bridges and diving a little bit deeper, because I am curious about you being here in the Netherlands, and you were from West California, but what made you come all the way here to the Netherlands?
Yeah, good question. Some people, immigrants, expats here call me a love pat because I came here for love, more or less. So I met a Spanish man, I guess now, and we were both traveling at the time, backpacking, and we met in Kosovo. And he got a job here first, and so after a little bit of long distance, I looked into moving here as well, and here we are. So that's the short story of it.
Thank you for sharing.
What's one juicy detail about you that you would love for everyone listening to know about you in where you're developing with your DEI work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was pondering that one as we started here. And I think what I would want people to take away is seeing someone that has such a multitude of backgrounds that we are all that, So I think I always hope that people see oh, we can always be more than one thing, or the one thing that people label us or whatever. And so I think that's why some of my coaching clients have enjoyed working with me. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of other multiracial people as well, but just I hope, people see that we can be more than one thing. We can have all these diversity backgrounds and experiences and bring them into our work. And so to tie it into what you just said, being able to bring that creative side I have and the analytical side I have and bringing that into work, and, the experiences I have growing up in the U.S. and traveling abroad and bringing that here. And so, I think bringing the diversity part in.
And when you look at your current DEI career journey, where are you?
So I would say that I would hope that I've brought DEI aspects into my entire journey and whatever role or project I've been in. But in terms of like actually where I'm at now is looking at like how can I bring it more into my work? So like, is it an actual role that's called am I actually a DEI specialist or manager, or am I going to stay on the consulting kind of freelance contractor side? And so that's the decision or space that I'm working with. And I think it's more, where can I find the next opportunity and collaborate with others? And again, whether that's like internally in an organization or externally as a freelancer consultant, I'm still open to that part. But I do feel like whether I've been a learning and development specialist or a coach, or now I do some content strategy work as well, I'm always trying to think through a DEI lens.
It sort of combines with what you said earlier. There's different sides to you, and you're not going to leave one behind and bring the other in, or, and it's there, you can be a DEI specialist and have that job title, or you can be a content creator who creates content that is inclusive. You're not going to leave one thing behind just because you're doing the other thing. You're not going to leave one part of who you are behind just because, your job title says something else. You're all those things, whichever role you have or choose, and whichever moment you're in.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are. Sometimes you have, like, this morning I saw a post about DEI professionals being like 10 roles in one, right? You're the coach, you're the strategist, you are the consoler, you're the counselor, you are so much more. I don't know all 10 by heart, but there's so much into that. And I am curious into what inspired you to navigate this journey.
Yeah, I think it's because the last 8 years I've been pretty solo, like a solopreneur, I guess the word is. And so I've been working more on my own and like being hired as a freelancer onto random projects or things. And as a coach just with one-on-one clients. And so I'm missing like kind of an overall vision or impact. And it's something that's always been in my personal life, like, the things that I read or study, or the things that maybe I talk about on social media or things like that. But it's never been, the main focus of my work. And so I'm like, okay, as I get older, I guess I want to look for more purpose and passion in my work, and I think a lot of people, no matter age, you are looking for that. More people are looking for that, and so yeah, I think that's what sparked this. Is like, okay, I don't want to just, if I'm going to do a content project on, helping people's legal page or whatever, like, okay, could I actually do the same work for helping, within the DEI space? So I think that's what sparked this.
Yeah. Purpose. Who's your role model in this?
Yeah, so, don't want to be too cheesy. We both of you as like role models in some way, shape, or form over the years. But I was like, okay, I guess I should say someone else too. But I like both of you in different ways. Like Marilyn, just like in your compassion and your drive and your allyship, I think is really, definitely like the way you do that has been a role model for me in ways that I want to be an ally for people as well. And then Vivian, like in your visibility and how you speak about things and put yourself out there as well. And then if I had to think of someone outside the two of you, then I would.
And thank you, because I didn't see this coming at all. Like, oh, what? So please add another one. And thank you.
Yeah, so I would say like most of the people that I do look up to are people that I am following on social media and reading their content, and because I love content a lot, just like in terms of storytelling and all those things. But I would also like to name one of my teachers, specifically their name is Daniela, and they identify as an artist and decolonization educator. And I love how they weave art and nature into their teachings and really make it experiential. And I think that their full-time job, I want to say, is I have to double check, but something in the education space, and as a director there for like a really cool organization. but they're always sharing like a lot of their learnings on Instagram is their main platform, but I've also been in their courses, and yeah, they've been a teacher of mine for a couple of years now.
We'll put the link to that Instagram account in our show notes.
What about DEI work is important for you to do?
Yeah, so I had a conversation. I was trying to remember the person's name. If I remember it, I'll send you all the link to their LinkedIn. But we were having this conversation about, our lives have been about being the bridge for other people. And for me, DEI work is like, okay, bringing other people onto the bridge with us so that we're not the only people like holding up. And then when we're gone, these two opposing, whatever, not opposing, but different cultures or groups of people aren't talking to each other anymore. It's like, okay, how can we get people onto the bridge and get them comfortable? Because it's not comfortable. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there. You have to make mistakes. Like even for me I'm doing a few more podcasts and things like that, coming on here and saying things, and, I might make a mistake or I might say the wrong thing, and that's vulnerable and that's scary as well. So for me, that's why DI work is important, is that like it's getting more people onto the bridge to be vulnerable, to be human. I think that's part of it too, is like to be more, all of us to be more human and learn and make mistakes and yeah, hopefully build a better, it sounds idealistic, I guess, but to build a better world and better places where we can all feel, safe, included, like be able to be our naturally resourceful, creative, and whole selves, basically, right?
Well, that's what purpose is, right? It's an ambition. Yeah.
But also you're mentioning something that is very valuable, right? Be human, have a growth mindset and learn from the mistakes. But also a very important factor is that being a DEI specialist doesn't make you not biased anymore, right? Not perfect. You're still imperfect. So DEI professionals aren't perfect. At least I am not. And I know that Marjolein isn't. I know all the people that we are talking here aren't. So to uphold DEI professionals in a way that they are perfect or put them in a pedestal where they aren't allowed to make mistakes is a myth. It's definitely a myth.
Yeah, I feel that a lot as well as, especially as I've like gotten to do, I've been doing a lot of informational interviews as I figure out my next steps. And I think, I'm guilty of that, putting people on a pedestal and feeling like, oh, they've got it like perfectly. They have like the perfect business, or they're doing really important work, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself. And so like through these interviews is like, just seeing people as human again, one, but like also there's something that you just said that made me think, just seeing them as human, and that they're also learning and growing and making mistakes, and that this, that's what I was going to say, that this is like any other job, that like, there's some people that are saying like, okay, you can go in there with experiences you had, and some people telling me like, oh, no, you can't do that. Like, you have to have like this education and you have to have this. And that's like the same in any, if I wanted to become, I don't know, a project manager, people would probably tell me the same thing. They'd be like, oh, no, you have like some of the skills already. You could go be a project manager tomorrow. And some people might be like, oh, well, you have to go to project management school, get a certification, and then you can become a project manager, right? So it's reminding me that this is also another career in another path that people have taken, and there's skills and experiences that, people will see and value, and some people won't.
There's purpose in it, but it's also just work and career, and it works the way every career step works. What are you great at?
Yeah, this is a good one. It's funny because you're like, as a coach, I'm always challenging people to name what they're great at. And then when the question is reflected back to you, it's always like, okay, what would I say? So this is a good one. I would say that I'm really great at writing. Writing is like probably one of my core strengths. And then I really enjoy just creating, I think that I'm great at presence and creating spaces where people, especially like in coaching one-on-one, like where they feel like they can let down some of their armor and be vulnerable. So I think that it works one-on-one, and then I've held some group spaces in the past as well where people feel like, oh, we can really say what we want to say and be heard, and Klarrisa will make sure that like everybody kind of gets that chance to do that. So yeah, I think that's something that I'm great at.
Yep. Oh, you are. These are all facts. I know that from personal experience. Thanks for telling the truth.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vivian Acquah, the certified DEI consultant, and I would like to invite you to take your organization to the next level of understanding by collaborating with me. I specialize in helping organizations amplify their DEI initiatives and foster an inclusive environment. Reach out today to learn how I can help your organization unleash its hidden potential and create a culture of belonging.
What is a privilege that you have and you currently use in your line of work?
Yes, so I would say there's two that came to mind in this question. I think they interweave a little bit. One, being multiracial, I think is a privilege, especially when I've like had the privilege of presenting as white and like entering spaces where people accept me right away, or don't like question me as much as if they might like see me as more Asian looking for whatever reason. And kind of on the same vein, like being an American and having like American privilege as well, living in Europe, I see that, and like in terms of like, I think they're both related, but like using that in my work is like kind of with coaching clients, like showing the mirror and being like, well, if you're coming from a country in the Middle East, like our experiences here living in the Netherlands are not going to be the same in finding work, or like when I do career coaching, especially, so like, looking at the inequities that might be in play of like why they might not be getting interviews because maybe they have a very uncommon name or a name that like gives away like where they're from. And so there might be such judgment or, biases that are happening in their application process where my name is Klarrisa Frank and people think I might be German sometimes, or that, which of my ancestors are from Germany, so it makes sense. But, I've been asked if I'm related to Anna Frank, which I don't know if that's possible or not, but there's, so there's already like with my name already. And then, so just like weaving it into my work and like helping others see like, why it might not be their fault, like especially with career coaching or coaching clients, why it's maybe not their fault that they feel this way or that they are experiencing these things, that maybe there's nothing more that they can do, but we can like look at what systems are maybe holding them back and like, okay, how can we interact with that system now that we have that knowledge and now that we like are acknowledging that it's there and how we are going to move forward with that. So there's that. And then just in like group settings, I think because I have always kind of felt like an outsider or tried to find my own belonging, like not being Asian enough, not being white enough to fit in growing up and stuff. I think that already gives me like, okay, who's not at the table and who can we include at the table for this discussion, no matter race in that case. Like, it's like, okay, do we need somebody from legal or finance here to talk about this project? Or, like what about even in a meeting room, people that are maybe more quiet or introverted, like trying to get their opinion as well as we go forward and things. So I think that like that privilege and being able to see both flip sides has helped me in those situations.
There's another thing that you're great at. And have become great at. I mean, that's how you've developed it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's been a big surprise that you've encountered?
I don't know if it's, I would say surprise, but just like a learning journey in itself is just learning the differences in DI work between the US and here. And honestly, it was surprising how, like, for countries that I felt like were more progressive, like the Netherlands or, I don't know, other countries in this part of Europe, like, that they're not ready to talk about race yet as much as, like, in the US. And for me, that was really surprising because I thought, like, oh, like, they would be, like, even more so than the US, like, they are on other issues, like healthcare or, I don't know, that's just the first one on the top of my mind. But yeah, I think it was like, oh, you don't want to talk about that, or I'm too American if I want to bring that up. I think that was really surprising to me when I first moved here, and then like also starting this journey as well, and hearing, yeah, very experienced DEI experts say, oh yeah, like we don't talk about race, we talk about culture, or we talk about these different things, and I'm like, but it
Let's
is.
focus on gender and leave the rest of diversity
Yeah.
out for now. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that is still surprising, even as I talk to more people and learn about it. I'm just like, but this is a big factor. And this is, I've worked in small Dutch startups where like everyone is white Dutch and great. But I'm like, what about, like we're in this neighborhood that's very diverse. You don't have anyone that's not white Dutch on your team, or, like, am I the only one speaking from my person of color experience? So it's also not very comfortable because I'm not Dutch. So yeah, it's just it's been a surprise, I think.
How do you currently navigate that?
I think sometimes I just step in, I am American, so I can't talk about it. So for me, it's not uncomfortable to, bring it up or like ask questions about it, because I think I come from California, but I lived in Seattle for about 9 years, and Seattle is a very progressive city and like talking about these things. And I was in the social justice kind of sphere when I was living there. So we were, talking about those things and stuff is it's uncomfortable, but it's still not something like I'm afraid to question maybe. And so sometimes it's just like finding the right question to ask, or, being like, oh, so like, why do you think it's like that? Or, do you think it could be this? Like, do you think that race or like where this person came from could be the reason that they're treated like that? Or sometimes just sharing my personal experience too. Like, unfortunately, I have had some like racist experiences here in the Netherlands that I'm not sure I want to share on this podcast, but like that have been really unfortunate and really harsh. And so like just on a personal connection of being like, this is what happened to me. Do you believe that that's real, or that people would treat me like that because they saw me as Asian and not belonging here? And for me, that's really important too, because like there's people that live in the Netherlands that look like me, that they're also from Indonesian and or Surinamese descent that look mixed exactly like me. And so like if they're not being kind or welcoming to me, that like makes me like I'm getting passionate about talking about now, because I'm like, there's people that look like me that they belong here because they've been here for generations and they are Dutch, and they should be treated with like more respect. So yeah.
You're hitting a nail on something which also brings to the workplace. Like a lot of people have this assumption, and the Netherlands is very progressive, right? We have the red light district, we have our weed, we have our tulips, and then we have our cheeses. But then again, there are people living here, right? And everywhere where people are, there is unconscious bias. And this goes also to the same workplaces, like all these companies that have their best culture or great workplace award, that's fine. But then again, which departments should not have that award, right? A lot of people look upon those rewards or recognition like, this is the best company. I would say Netflix, Google, LinkedIn, Indeed, and all the big companies, but also the small companies that are doing their best to mitigate unconscious bias. Doesn't mean that there is no unconscious bias, right? How they embark this journey by being open, sharing more transparency about where they are and what they are going to do better. Whereas here in Europe, I'm seeing less of that less of the transparency, less of the DEI from, okay, we started here, we are open about our journey, and this is where we want to go because of the lack of data that we have. So it's good that you are addressing it, that yes, the Netherlands is very progressive, but there is a lot happening on the water.
A lot of work to be done.
Definitely. So looking at what you have shared before, what would you like to explore in the future?
Yeah, I think I'm still wanting to explore, more like from a professional space, like more collaborations or how I could, what's my path or how can I best help in this space? And I think that's where I'm still exploring and making connections and finding where I could maybe find that. And then in terms of like learning also for myself is like I'm learning more about, especially like neurodiversity and also, I guess you call it, and again, this is because I need to do the learning around it, like physical disabilities and like how we could be more inclusive of people with, just different abilities, I guess, as well. So I think that's in terms of like my own personal and professional development. Again, like I feel like I know a lot about racial justice and gender diversity as well, but like what are other pieces of the pie that I need to learn more about for myself, like personally, but also as an ally too.
That's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to seeing that develop and learning with you because there's plenty that I'm also learning. Yeah. What lights you up?
I think the discussion we were just talking about, this biggest surprise, that you could see that was like lighting me up, and I'm like, and so, of course, like talking about racial diversity and equity and that, and just like different cultures too, because like, I mean, I love living in Amsterdam for that reason. Like Amsterdam is one of the few cities in the world that I've felt like I finally belong because I feel like part of like this very international mix. And again, I know that that's not true for everybody, but for myself, like I was seen as an outsider for so long in the U.S. because don't fit like people's stereotype of what an American looks like, even though I am American. Like coming here, I am an outsider, and I've kind of embraced that, like, oh, I'm an outsider, and that's okay, and that's like who I am. And so, I think talking about those issues and things like light me up a lot. And then, people light me up, and even if they're being terrible people or terrible humans, sometimes that also makes me, just like get curious and creative. Like how can, like if I'm in training and there's someone pushing back a lot, it's like, it's frustrating, but it's also like, okay, how can I get them to feel like they can ask new questions or like, get into learning a little bit more? Because, again, if I look at them as just a human, then, they're processing, they're learning, they're growing. And so for me, that means I get to I have to be a little bit more creative. And that's like one of my values. And I think also something that I'm good at is getting creative in those kinds of situations.
Hey, are you ready to rediscover focus, clarity, and resilience so that you can be a stronger change maker for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? I am Marjolein Vlug. I'm a certified coach. And whether you're getting started in DEI or are further along in your journey, I can support you to take your work to the next level. With me as your ally, you can gain clarity on your next initiatives or career goals, make intentional choices, stay accountable to them, deal with the intensity of the work, and create real change. Let's talk. I'd love to learn more about you. Reach out, book a chat.
You can definitely, to the listeners who are listening or watching this episode, you can definitely hear that Klarrisa is a coach. We are all coaches. We are all coaches on this call. And we come from asking questions, diving deeper. But that's a really good muscle to have when you are a DEI professional, when you want to become a DEI professional, because you don't want to approach people with your assumptions, right? We all know that assumptions need to be clarified, and the best way to do that is to ask questions, reflect, ask questions. So I love that you are bringing those questions up. And what's next for you?
Well, as I mentioned before, yeah, I'm kind of expanding my own career journey. So I'm looking for projects or roles that maybe the title isn't DI specialist or DI consultant, but it's like the company's open to, okay, you're coming in for content strategy, or you're coming in to coach or facilitate learnings, and, you know, like, yeah, we're open to you bringing a DI lens to that, or, you know, even if they don't say it, like, I can ask, like, you know, if I can ask the right questions and move them in that direction too, I'm okay with pushing the boundaries a little bit on that. But yeah, I think it's something with a team, with working with others, because again, I've been this solopreneur now for a while, and I'm ready to really have a dedicated team or people that like I can lean on for support, and who can lean on me as well.
Love that.
Thank you. I'm so curious to see where it's going to take you. I know you read a lot. I know you listen and you go on social media and you pick up new insights all over the place. Do you have a recommendation for us and for our listeners as to, you know, what to read, what to watch, what to listen to?
Yeah, so I think another thing I'm really passionate about is just like all of us slowing down more and just creating like a slower life. And so there's a couple of resources on that. The first one is the NAP Ministry, which I think a lot of people have heard of now. And they are this person that runs the account. I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but they're always talking about like Russ's resist. Oh, Trisha Hersey. I might not be saying that correctly, but they
will be in the show notes.
Yeah, and they wrote a book now, and they have like this. I guess they were also in Amsterdam recently, and just like the way that they speak about resting and rest as resistance is, I think, really important. And on that same note, this is the book I just finished. It's called 4,000 Weeks: Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And the same thing, and it's like technically a time management book, but it's really about like undoing and learning all the things we know about time management and how we run our lives and all of that. And then the last thing that I'll mention that I'm also just started reading, but I think I could still recommend it because I'm liking it a lot so far, is called Regenerative Business. And that is by Samantha Garcia. And yeah, that one is all about, you know, there's this movement for regenerative farming and like just things like just following the cycles of nature, like with not just our personal lives, but also in our businesses. There's, you know, all the cycles of nature of like dying, of like being the death of like an offer or something that you're doing in your business, and then the springtime of planting seeds, and then the summer of enjoying your heart, like enjoying the bounty and things like this, and also in the fall too, continuing getting things as well. So yeah, I think those would be like the three things that I would recommend.
Thanks. I like how you bring that in, because that is also part of the wider space of, you know, white supremacy culture and colonialism and patriarchy and hustle culture and everything that is part of that way of thinking. You know, your suggestions help us develop different thinking around that. Yeah. I love how you pull that wider.
Yeah, especially because I think also it's just like we are living in, capitalist cultures. And so for like, I've had some health issues the last year that made me slow down a lot. And it's like, okay, even if I slow down, I should be a valid part of society, and not just me, like others as well, like that can't work at the same pace. None of us can work at the pace that like we're being pushed to work at. But I think, especially living in Europe and coming from America, where things are just like rapid to like people are working 50, 60-hour weeks until they die, basically. Like coming here and people are like enjoying their 2 weeks vacation, 3 weeks, 4 weeks vacations, and I'm like, oh, that's possible. You can do that. And I would love more of that for, my family and friends back in the States as well, like to see that you don't have to live on a hamster wheel for your whole life. So I think that's where this passion comes from.
What do you wish for your colleagues or others who do DEI work?
There's two things that come to mind. One is recognition, just like personal recognition of how much y'all are doing and changing the world. And as I've been talking to more and more people, that's really apparent. And then, like, giving yourself the personal recognition. But I wish, more people could see, like, some of the powerful work that is happening within the organizations and teams and individuals that y'all are working with. And then, like, peace with that. Like, peace, so you're like, okay, you're doing enough. You don't have to carry the whole world on your shoulders or in your hands, wherever. Like, just some peace that there are so many people doing this work and so many people that are passionate about this.
Love that. I love that. And on that note, I am truly grateful for having you on today's episode. And for those who would like to ask questions or comment this episode, please leave them below the show notes as well. And Marjolein, what do you have to share?
Yeah, and anyone who would like to connect or have a chat with Klarrisa, the way to contact her will be in the show notes as well. There will be a bit of time between us publishing this and a recording day, and Klarrisa, I'm sure that you'll be interested in connecting with more people and chatting with others in the field at that time.
Yes, definitely.
There you go.
Until next time. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You're warmly invited to pause for a moment and think about what stood out to you from this conversation. Please share this episode with others to inspire them too. Make sure to subscribe to our Substack channel. We'll be back soon with more episodes. Be well, take care, and stay connected.